Place to be Nation, welcome back to the one and only Place to Be Podcast. I'm your co-host, Justin Rosero, coming to you live here from the PTB studios. And joining me, as always, is Mr. Scott Criscullo. Scott, how are you?
Good evening, JR. Place to Be Network, friends and family, and the No-So. Welcome to episode 645 of the longest running episodic motherfucking gold standard. We are 55 from 7 bills. And I know you may say that, you may laugh at that, JR, but the pace with which our new theme goes may end up being a little quicker than we usually think it will. You never know.
You never know. We may get a few more Christmases before
That's
we
true,
get to
yeah.
700.
That's true. And a couple of long Halloweens. So, 2024, sir, how you doing? Everything good?
I mean, besides the flu and the broken tooth and the snow. Oh, wonderful. Just wonderful.
The snow.
Flu.
I know. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, the shitty weather. We'll put it that way. Not so ice.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of ice, which I hate. I hate ice more than anything else. Ice.
I agree.
Not
I'd
fun.
rather just snow and then melt. You don't need all this glazing
I'm
over
not
shit.
an ice
So.
fan. All right. Anyway, here's a man that does know about snow and is a fan of ice hockey. He is, of course, the host, owner of the Sportscasters Podcast, co-host of the 24-inch podcast. You see him from time to time on the North-South Connection, various videos, chronosos, and other countdowns and lists. And, of course, great time here, a longtime fan and guest on the Place to Be podcast, Mr. Steve Bennett. Steve, how are you?
Hello, guys. I think my first appearance was in the 480s, I think.
All right.
So what'd you say? We're at 6?
Yeah, 6:45 now.
Okay, yeah. So I know I was on 518 because Scott and I talked about that one recently.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's always good to have you, buddy.
Yeah,
and, of
good to be
course, you're hot right now. You're coming off the big Bob Costas interview. So this is a big get for us right now. This is a star.
Yeah, that was a big deal. Someone slipped me his number at the end of 2023, and I sent him a clear blue text and said, "Love to have you, big fan." And I said, "Here's a link to this article they wrote about me in SI. Learn a little bit more about it." And he wrote back, and I could tell he was going to test me. He said, "Write me in the new year, and we'll see." Kind of. But he also said the link to the article didn't work. I was like, "Well, I really want you to see that." I sent him a new link. And then he wrote back 5 minutes later. I was like, "All right, I'll do it in January." So I had about 3 weeks. I went to Bob Costas University, man. I watched 300 videos on YouTube. I had a stack of articles this big. I read them all. I reread his book. I listened to some of his radio show he used to do. I wanted to be prepared for everything. And in the end, it's a normal. I was way over prepared. You know what I mean?
Right.
I wanted to be ready for anything. And he gave me an hour. He was really fun. And it got a lot of traction. I got Richard Deitch put it in his column. The awful announcing people still say they're writing on it. I haven't seen it yet, but they insist they're gonna. We'll see. But it's done well. The show's doing well. It's my 14th season and 13th year doing it. So
it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this year's full of health and big interviews for everybody.
Yeah.
Definitely. Good to have you here. I know we've had some January episodes scheduled in the past with you that got derailed. So
I appeared at a Place to Be Nation literally while I was getting injected with Dilaudid by the nurse.
Stop. That's right. I forgot about that. That's funny.
I've been on this show in all forms of health, but good right now. Good. So.
Yeah, well, thankfully we weren't doing video then. And speaking of, if you are listening on the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, welcome. This is simulcast style video on the North-South Connection. So if you want to watch, you can with whatever. Either way, your choice. We're just happy that you're with us. Yes. So this is our brand new format, Scott. We started it a couple months ago, making towns. And Steve, what we want to do right now is have you tell us the town and why you picked it. And then we'll get to your match choice in a bit. We'll kind of talk about. Sure. Actually, we'll give us the match choice too. So we're going to talk about this week in history from that time. But tell us a little bit about what you picked and why.
So I picked Buffalo, New York. It's my hometown. Born and raised here. As much as I hate New York State, I could never not live here. I'm away a few days. I come back on the airplane. I see Buffalo outside the window, and it makes me feel something I haven't felt in a few days. Something about home and being here. So I love Buffalo. I'm a big Buffalo guy. And I was at this show as a pretty new wrestling fan. It's June of 87, so I was just about to turn 7. And I had started watching about a year earlier, but really became a huge fan over the build to WrestleMania 3 and through WrestleMania 3. And my favorite thing besides Hulk at this time was Steamboat. I felt personally hurt when the Macho Man tried to murder him on November 22nd, 1986. JFK was killed on November 22nd as well in 63. And I think Savage was looking to have the second biggest assassination.
Savage supposed to ring bell from the book depository.
Yeah. So I got personally involved with that. My grandfather, who was an old Italian guy at the time, when I started watching, he thought he loved wrestling. He's a big wrestling guy. And I think I watched for something to talk with him about in the beginning. I could get his attention. I felt like that way, and that was important. So I picked it. I was there, and we'll get into the night did not go my way. I actually have 2 videos to show, or one match and one Jake Snake Pit segment. And at the end of each of these things we show, I cried for an hour. So it was a night full of up and downs, as I will tell you. So it's a fun night. It's probably the biggest night still in the history of wrestling here. There's been some other things, other pay-per-views, but I don't think there's anything significant as significant as the start of the longest intercontinental run of all time. I think that is probably the most historically significant thing. So that's why I chose it.
All right. So that is on the June 13th, 1987 Superstars, Ricky Steamboat versus the Honky Tonk Man for the IC title. So we'll get to that later in the show.
And the taping I was at was, I think, on the 2nd, and they got 3 shows out of it.
Oh, yeah.
So 13, 20, and 27 were all, right. If you want to go back and watch stuff recorded that night, it's those 3 shows.
Yeah. Typical taping.
They used to jam so much on those tapings. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they really did.
It was a long night for a 6-year-old kid, if I recall.
That's a lot of squash matches.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. So, Scott, why don't we go back in town, back in time to Making Town.
To the town.
The city of Buffalo. Right. The week of June 7th, 87 to June 14th, 87. We're going to cover some of the history, talk about the house shows that were going on. We'll dig into some observer notes from that week as well, kind of get a landscape, and then we'll dive into some pop culture talk. And then we'll head to Buffalo. We'll talk about some of the history of wrestling in Buffalo, and then we'll watch the match together. So that's kind of the agenda here tonight. So, Scott, what was going on the circuit on this week in 87?
Well, before we begin, I want to echo what Steve said about being, a long evening when you go to a TV taping. That February, and I was a little older than you. I was 13, and I went to a TV taping at the Coliseum, and there were 4 Piper's Pits. I think I saw
plenty of this guy right here.
I saw plenty of that guy right there. Yep. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. I think I had that one.
I brought him over here. Now I have to show him on like everything I do. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh no, he was definitely on. Well, Akeem wasn't there. One Man Gang. Let's see, 87. He was probably in.
Yeah, he would have been there.
He was probably in. Yeah.
When did he show up? He's there by Survivor Series, right? So probably.
Yeah.
When did
he might have been
mid?
Yeah, he might have been finishing up in. Yeah, he might have been finishing up in Mid-South at that point.
Yeah, late fall.
Yeah. This is winter. But I know how you feel about long TV tapings, because that Monday night, it was a challenge, and it was a challenge to get through that when you're 13 too. So, all right. So on this evening, July 13th, 1987, it was a very, very busy. It was a very busy evening in both the WWF and in Crockett. So the WWF had 2 shows. They had a split loop, and there was an East Coast one and there was a Midwest one. We'll do the Midwest one first, because I want to surprise you with the East Coast one. So they were at the Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis, Missouri, for this show, 5,300. Here is your card, and you guys, I'll read it and then give me your thoughts on which show you would have preferred to have gone to. So here we go. Frenchie Martin. So JR will not be at this one. Pinned CV Affi. Oh God. We already know what JR is going to pick. Actually, yeah. Billy Jack Haynes pinned Butch Reed with a backslide. Rick Rude defeated Dusty Wolf. Your women's champion, the Fabulous Moolah, defeated Debbie Combs. Your world heavyweight champion, Hulk Hogan, defeated King Harley Race at 8:57. I'm sure that wasn't a bad match. Hillbilly Jim, who subbed for Jake Roberts, pinned the Honky Tonk Man after Jake Roberts interfered. Honky was not recognized as the WWF Intercontinental Champion because technically, since the match aired that day, they hadn't acknowledged it until the next day. How about that for a little TV trickery? So Honky was not technically Intercontinental Champion live at this show at the Kiel Auditorium. Scott Casey pinned Jose Estrada. George Steele defeated Danny Davis via countout. And the main event, Demolition defeated the Killer Bees. So there was your St. Louis show.
Not bad.
The East Coast show was at the Providence Civic Center.
Let's go.
So there you go. JR, might as well pick up that figure again because guess who was in the opener? That's right. And he won. So he did the double gun. ST Jones defeated the Red Demon.
Oh boy. I wonder who that was under the mask that night.
I know.
Let's see the rest of the card. We'll try and guess who was under the hood.
Okay.
It was probably someone, either someone local or someone on the show.
Yeah. The Islanders defeated the Young Stallions. Ken Patera defeated Hercules via countout. Rick Martel and Tom Zink defeated Don Morocco and Bob Orton Jr. And after the bout, they started
WrestleMania 3 rematch.
I know. And they started fighting with each other because, as you know, that was kind of when Morocco started to turn face. Brutus Beefcake and the Rougeau brothers defeated the New Dream Team and Luscious Johnny V in an elimination match. So that match is probably a decent length. Iron Mike Sharp pinned Outback Jack. And in the main event, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff defeated the Junkyard Dog with his feet on the ropes for leverage.
It's not a bad card.
No,
it's pretty tight. Not a lot of junk. My guess is Johnny V might have been under that hood as the Red Demon. That's going to be my guess.
I'm going to say it was probably, I'm going to say one of two people. I'm going to say either Jose Luis Rivera, because he was everybody, or well-renowned jobber at the time, Sal G, because Sal G was from Providence, Rhode Island.
Yeah,
I have a feeling he was a local guy. I have a feeling.
But I feel like if it was like a name like Jose Luis, they would have just had him be Jose Luis Rivera. That's why I think it was someone on the card already, and they just had him do double duty under the hood.
Who would have looked? It had to be somebody who obviously couldn't be recognized.
Zank? Johnny V and that dumper couldn't have been him.
Poor Red Demon. I'm going to say probably a jobber, but that's just me.
So this is before I was going to shows. Obviously, I didn't go to my first one until April of '90. My buddy Jim, though, was going to these. I'll have to ask him if he was at this one. But Steve, a little bit of trivia for you. Providence was home to one of the only Hulk Hogan versus Jake the Snake matches when Jake was a heel.
Yeah.
I think it was in December, maybe. And he was at that. And he said it was his first show as a fan. And he would have been young. He would have been like 6. He said, but he remembers going and he remembers the rumors of like Jake getting cheered over Hogan. But
revisionist. There's no way. There's no way in 1986 Jake was getting cheers over Hulk Hogan anywhere.
Could have been a split pop.
He might have been the eight guys in the row he was in, like right. So he remembers it being the whole arena. But the biggest problem I have with that, and look at Jake and Hulk are both liars. You know, they both always when they're talking, they're always working, right?
Oh, totally.
So you can't really believe. But just to me, if I put myself in 1986 context and I put on any other show that Hulk is in, I find it hard to believe that Jake was getting huge pop.
I could see maybe they were like both getting cheered. Like I could see that, you know what I mean? Like where they were into Jake as a wrestler. Cause I mean, he was getting pretty over. Like there's a reason they turn him.
Yeah.
And if you watch that Saturday's main event match with Savage, where they're both heels, like Jake is the one getting cheered more. So I think it was coming anyway. So it might've been a little bit of like, they were headed that way anyway. They kind of used that as a reason, but anyway. All right. What else we got, Scott, going on?
So so that was that. So those were the two loops. There was one in Providence and one in St. Louis. As for JCP, Jim Crockett Promotions, they had a very busy day because I believe this was a Saturday. I believe it was. I think I graduated from grammar school the night before, so I'm pretty sure
this is the day of the show. It was Superstars, which was Saturday.
Yeah.
Right?
So this was definitely a Saturday. So we had a TV taping at the studios in Atlanta. Episode of World Championship Wrestling, the night show, featured the Dusty Rhodes versus NWA television champion Tully Blanchard bout, taped 6/6 at Greensboro. Included Tony Schiavone conducting an interview with world champion Ric Flair, which he said Precious was playing hard to get after walking off with his $15,000 fur coat. I just watched this in one of my Chrono watches, this whole 87 thing with between Flair and Jimmy Garvin. Shook the hands of TV champion Tully, Arn, Luger, and J.J. Dillon in the ring. The matches were Kendall Windham against Art Pritz, Jimmy Garvin against Rick Sullivan, Art Pritz, all the
Sounds
horsemen.
like a Seinfeld character name.
Who Art Pritz?
Elaine goes on a date with Art Pritz.
Yeah. Arn, Tully, and Luger wrestled against Mike Force, Cougar J, and Chance McQuaid.
Jesus.
Sound like NWO arena guys. And so that was that match. Then there was the Sunday edition of Championship Wrestling as well. Then they did something called NWA Super Bouts. Included Tony Schiavone as the sole host without J.J. Dillon. Featured an ad promoting the 1987 Crockett Cup on VHS, which was probably like $50. Included TV champion Tully Blanchard versus Todd Champion from the 6/6/87 Pro. Featured the announcement that the July 18th 87 house show in Charlotte would be part of the Great American Bash Tour. Nikita Koloff, the U.S. champion, defeated Ivan Koloff in a chain match. When after Nikita touched three corners, Ivan knocked him into the fourth. David Crockett was a guest ring announcer for the bout and explained the rules. Referee Tommy Young having to clarify to him that the winner would have to drag his opponent to the four corners consecutively. Right, I think the week before that 7/18 show is when Luger beat Nikita for the U.S. title, which of course he would hold until SummerSlam. Starrcade.
It's quite the crossover.
Right? Pretty great match too. Also on that day, Chris Champion and Sean Royal were injured in a car wreck driving from the TV studio in Atlanta to Florence, South Carolina. The car hydroplaned in the rain with both men being thrown through the windshield.
What's with fucking Florence and the weather for these wrestlers?
I know, right? Jesus. Mother Nature did not love pro wrestling in the city of Florence. The car hydroplaned in rain. Both men had been thrown through the windshield before the car exploded. Jesus Christ. God. Royal suffered major burns while Champion's arm was broken in two places. So
I'm surprised that wasn't the jobber's name, Major Burns.
It's too bad that world hero Hulk Hogan wasn't near the scene. He could have saved them. Like
yes.
That little girl last week. So
yep.
So
there was a house show in Florence. There's no matches on the history of WWE.com. There was a card at the arena in Baltimore. So they were kind of, well, I can't say they were encroaching because they did go to Baltimore a lot.
Right.
Here's the card. One half of the World Tag Team Champions, Ricky Morton, defeated Mark Fleming. Arn Anderson defeated Kendall Windham. Manny Fernandez beat Brickhouse Brown. The Midnight Express, who were the United States Tag Team Champions, defeated Tracy Smothers and Steve Armstrong. Tully Blanchard defeated Ronnie Garvin. Nikita Koloff defeated Lex Luger via DQ. And in the main event, your World Heavyweight Champion, Ric Flair, defeated Jimmy Garvin. So a pretty loaded house show in
that's not bad.
No.
Yeah, I feel like they probably brought the A crew usually to Baltimore or anything kind of northeast.
Kind of with that town, because that was when they both ran, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So they're definitely trying to make a dent. And then what do they run? Is it a Bash next year, or what? Don't they run Baltimore for something in the next year? In '88,
Crockett Cup. I think the Crockett Cup. I think the Crockett Cup's there. Yeah. Is Baltimore at the Bash? No, the Bash is in. Oh wait,
what's the one that were on the friggin' boat and they do like the little press conference? Wasn't that?
That's Clash 2.
Okay,
that's Clash 2. They were signing the contract. They were signing the contract for the Luger Flair match at Great American Bash '88. That was in Baltimore because that was the first pay-per-view. That was or the first that was the first pay-per-view of the Great American Bash was that show, and I think that was Baltimore.
Bash '99 was in Baltimore apparently.
God. To add to this, because they were kind of about to buy them, UWF, speaking of Mid-South, had a show.
Bash '89 was in Baltimore.
Okay. That makes sense.
Something. One of those bashes was there.
Yeah. As I said, speaking of Mid-South, of course, Crockett was on the verge of buying them. UWF had one of their big Superdome shows in Nolens. here is your card. Shane Douglas fought Shaska Watley to a draw. Buddy Roberts defeated Mike Boyette. Steve Cox defeated Gary Young. Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy, the Freebirds, defeated the Terminator, and the Enforcer. Your World Tag Team Champions, the Rock and Roll Express, defeated Vladimir Pietrov and the Angel of Death. Your UWF Tag Team Champions, Brad Armstrong and Tim Horner, they had a nickname. Blue Lightning Express. Lightning Express.
Oh, yeah, because it was White Lightning was Tim Horner, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were called the Lightning Express. That's right. They defeated Rick Steiner and Sting. Your UWF World Champion, Big Bubba, defeated Barry Windham. Black Bart defeated Chris Adams. And the main event, Dr. Death, Steve Williams, who was crazy over in UWF. He would eventually be world champion. I think he beat Big Bubba when Big Bubba went to Crockett. He defeated Dick Murdoch. So that was your card. So UWF had that's a solid show.
Yeah.
For UWF.
Days.
Yeah, which I mean they're pretty much on life support at this point. So, but to be honest, not a bad cachet.
No, pretty busy day. Maybe one of
the
the best set of house shows we probably had since we did this.
Good stuff everywhere. I would have went to that St. Louis show in a heartbeat. I would have went to that Baltimore show. Seemed pretty cool.
Yeah,
that Superdome show is cool. Plus, you're in the Superdome, one of the best places in the world. So yeah, I'm sure they were
at that time. Steve selling out more than the Saints.
on the prefaces, though, 87's their first playoff year. So
87, they went 12-3. They only finished a game behind because that was the strike year. They only finished a game behind the Niners. So there you go. Yeah. So there's your house show. There's your house shows on that date, June 13th, 1987. JR, any news, notes, and tidbits for us?
Yeah, this is pre-Herb, so no Herb Coons tidbits tonight, sadly. But we did pull up the Wrestling Observer notes from looks like June 8th, 1987. And it's a pretty big story, bro. So Dave has the news. The biggest story of the week is Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik have been arrested on drug charges. They were arrested at 2:20 p.m. on May 26th in Middletown, New Jersey, on the way to that night's show. They were pulled over, discovered to have been smoking marijuana, not eating it. Duggan has been drinking a bottle of beer while driving. They found more marijuana on Duggan, 3 grams of cocaine in Iron Sheik's shaving kit. They were released later that day and worked the show, but it hit the news in several major cities. Since the two were in a major feud, this is doubly embarrassing to WWF that they were traveling and doing drugs together. News reports had it that they'd been suspended, but WWF fired both later in the week. Dave's understanding is that Sheik is highly unlikely to work for WWF ever again, and Dave is more optimistic that Duggan will be brought back, although he imagines it will require a character tweak. This is extra embarrassing for Duggan because his hometown of Glen Falls, New York, is scheduled to have Jim Duggan Day this week, and Jim Duggan Sr. is the chief of police in Glen Falls. How fans will treat the situation is unknown, but in the long run, it'll probably be meaningless, which is true. The kayfabe issues aren't a big deal because fans who choose to believe will forget about it. Some fans may lose confidence, and it does hurt Duggan's character in the short term. Dave doesn't know if WWF had rules about faces and heels traveling together, but he's pretty sure it's not allowed anymore due to the high publicity of WWF. They also began finding faces and heels who drink together in public. While this will be forgotten soon, it does serve as a reminder that wrestling is big enough right now that you can't afford these types of incidents. Imagine if we were Hogan in Duggan's place and how it could have affected the WWF. So before we get to the next story, any thoughts on this one? And he's pretty much right on everything. Duggan comes back, and I guess it does probably lead to a little bit of a gimmick change because he does the goofier stuff he does later really wasn't in place in this early run here. He is more of like the brawling tough guy, police officer type guy, right? And later when he comes back, he's still that a little bit, but he does tweak to more of the family friendly, out, bushwhacker type of thing. And I don't know if it was because of this or just it was a natural evolution. But
well, at this time, my uncle worked at Hertz at the airport in Buffalo. And he would always say that the wrestlers would rent cars that were opposites.
Right.
The problem was he also told me he read in the newspaper that Andre the Giant was going to beat Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3. So when he did it, he lost his credibility with me. So I never believed
it was a shot.
And then he showed me this in the paper. It said, see, I told you, so he got a little credibility back. But I think the famous quote to Vince McMahon to Hacksaw was, "Jim, what have you done to us?" I think was the guilt trip.
I'm sure he played it out. Yeah, I'm sure he really laid it on thick.
Yeah, what have you done to us? Was the quote.
What have you done to us?
Yeah.
What have you done to us?
No longer a cop. Now you're a fool.
Yeah.
Scott, any thoughts before we roll along here on the notes?
I don't know what's. I like the way Meltzer mentioned it. These, faces and heels driving and doing drugs together. It's okay.
Eating marijuana.
Eating marijuana. Is it okay if two faces do drugs together and two heels do drugs together? But I mean, they're fucking idiots. I mean, they're fucking idiots.
Drugs,
I mean, they're both idiots.
Yeah.
So
how
much
they're both cocaine is that?
3 grams? I don't know.
Like, I have no idea. Could be.
I don't either. I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure it was enough
Any
for
Coke
Iron
experts
Sheik.
that are watching or listening, leave a comment on the YouTube.
If Pablo
Minnesota,
Escobar is listening, no. Yeah, that's but I mean, if it's Iron Sheik, I'm sure it's a bountiful amount. But I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, they should have known better. The drugs part, I'm sure Vince probably could care less about the drug part because I'm sure he's fucked around.
Well, he was probably coked up while he was yelling at Duggan.
Yeah. Sheik, why didn't you share, you asshole?
I mean, honestly, the thing he was probably most upset about was them being together, getting caught. Like,
Yeah,
he probably didn't give a shit they got caught. He probably didn't, like, whatever the fuck. He didn't care about any of that. He only cared that they were together in the car. I mean, if Duggan got caught with Jim Brunzell, he probably wouldn't have given a shit. He probably just would have fired Brunzell and kept Duggan. But
he probably figured out who the lesser of two guys was. Jose Luis Rivera traveling with Hulk Hogan, and there's 40 grams of coke in the car. Rivera, you asshole, you're fired. And then they would have moved on.
It was the bad headline. He was mad at the headline.
Yeah. So,
all right. WWF's Director of Operations, Jim Barnett, attempted suicide this past week.
Oh, no.
There was a point where it was uncertain where he would make it following an apparent self-induced pill overdose. Barnett is one of the biggest names in business. He graduated from Harvard, got in the business with Fred Kohler in Chicago in the 50s, and became one of the most powerful promoters in wrestling over the next 30 years. His reputation is one of being at the right place at the right time and had a knack for building up a promotion big in the short term and then bailing out before it got burned out. He and Kohler attempted a national promotion through TV exposure on the Dumont Network in the 1950s. That was when Scott, I believe you just mentioned, graduated grade school.
I did.
But when they lost TV, that fell off. From there, he went to Detroit, built them up before the bottom fell out in the 60s, in which he went to Australia, made millions, but then left due to tax issues. Next, went to Atlanta and ran Georgia Championship Wrestling in the 70s, lost control of the promotion to Ole Anderson, and then went to WWF right at the cusp of their move toward going national. So clearly having some issues over some maybe stress or pressure, or maybe he was upset about Duggan and Sheik getting caught in the car. Couldn't handle
all that coke. Yeah.
All right.
He ended up living till 2004, so he got over it, whatever it was.
Yeah, I guess he fought through it, so good for him.
Yeah.
All right. Some new WWF hires this week include some big names here. Rick Rude and the Midnight Rockers, both of whom were tag team champions of the NWA and AWA. Rude just up and disappeared this past week with no reason given. He missed his NWA dates. Over in Crockett country, they saw Vladimir Petrov in for him on May 24th and announced Ivan Koloff was replacing him as Manny Fernandez's partner on May 26th. Both shows, they said Rude was injured, which will make them look like dopes if he debuts in the next 2 weeks on WWF TV. As for the Rockers, on May 25th, they dropped their belts on the way out to Boris Zukov and Soldat Ustinov before debuting 5 days later by challenging the Hart Foundation to a tag title match. Rude probably won't be a big loss in the NWA, but the Rockers are the biggest draw in the AWA, and WWF found them appealing after Kurt Hennig backed out of signing. And of course, the Rockers run, similar to Duggan, would be very short, right? Because they get busted. They partied and started a fight at a bar or whatever.
They were
in a bar. They were in a bar. All the guys were hanging out, and Jimmy Jack Funk Art Bar or whatever was being a fucking dick, and he kind of goaded the two of them into like getting loud and picking a fight. And of course, they're both young, stupid, and fell for the bait. Yeah, they fell for the bait, and Vince fired them, and they went back to.
And they don't come back for a year. I mean, they're not back until late '88. So
yeah, They make the Survivor
crawling
Series.
back to AWA.
Yeah. But
tough a couple of months for guys getting hired and fired.
Which is funny because Jimmy Jack Funk within the year would end up getting fired because I'm watching one of my chrono watches. I'm on 88 World Class, which is just unwatchable garbage. And he's like one of the fucking guys that's on every week. The roster at that point.
I think he must. Did he get fired? He probably got fired for this, I would think. Did they all get when they get the fight?
I don't know if he did, but I mean, he probably did. I mean, by the time, listen, by the time Haas and Terry were gone, he was fucking.
Here's my barometer. He's not in the WrestleMania 4 Battle Royal, so he's gone by then for sure. They got every jabron in that Battle Royal. So if you're not in that battle, and you're not at Survivor Series, you're probably gone.
No, he was probably in a world class by that point. So.
All right. We got a story about Tenryu in Japan. We kind of glossed that. Regarding Roddy Piper's appearance in Portland, Dave saw the tape and thinks most of the rumors are unfounded. Piper wasn't familiar with the angles or younger wrestlers and just ranted and raved as usual, which made the show a lot better, but makes no implication that he's joining them on a regular basis. So it talks about that. Dave's sure Piper will eventually return, but not as a promoter in the Portland circuit. He broke his wrist 10 days before WrestleMania and wrestled the match anyway. He also recently filmed an ABC pilot with Lyle Alzado, a former NFL player. Speaking of wrestlers turned actors, by the time you read this, you can see Jesse Ventura in the new movie Predator.
Oh.
There you go. Dave got a new typewriter, apparently, during this issue here.
He still has the box on the floor right now in 2024 with all of his fucking house show sheets in it. So,
all right, here's some more notes on some hires. The TV tapings this week will give a good idea of some of the new hires will be used. Ted DiBiase and Bam Bam Bigelow will be mostly in Japan until August. With Duggan out and Jake Roberts undergoing surgery, there's a lack of drawing baby faces. So Randy Savage may make his turn soon to fill the gap. The Rockers coming in is probably the end of any hope for Martel and Zink as a major team. When Martel and Zink came in, the Rougeaus were the team with the Rocket, and they were done. It was just never got over as hoped. It's obvious that WWF fans don't really see these teams as a draw, but rather as interchangeable. If the Rockers want to get over, they'll need to have a big breakout win early, like winning the tag belts. Junkyard Dog and Paul Orndorff are coming back in mid-June. Orndorff didn't get the recommended surgery, just rested for 11 weeks. To Dave's surprise, they're giving JYD yet another chance. So, Steve, any thoughts on those notes there? I mean, pretty much on point.
Yeah, it is interesting. He said they would need to win the belts because they literally never won them and were one of the biggest, star teams ever. They did, obviously, on Saturday's Main Event, but it didn't air, so it didn't happen, right?
Right.
But so that's interesting. And they're hiring. This is still when they're building the all-star team, right? As the smaller promotions are going down, they're bringing in the DiBiase's, you named, Root. They're bringing in the top talent and building the roster up and some huge.
In 87, 88 is a big turnover year for them. Like a lot of the guys from the early expansion by end of 87 start to filter out.
Right.
So your Moroccos, your Orndorffs, like guys like that, right? They're starting to head out. And then 87 to 88 just to see the new wave of guys come in, like Rude, like the Rockers,
DiBiase,
Brainbusters eventually, Mr. Perfect. Yeah, like all those guys start to become the next wave of dudes. Santino Bravo, he somehow hangs on.
He gets pushed more.
He had mouth practice.
Yeah.
All right. In the WWF, Sting turned face on May 31st, had a match with Terry Taylor, got beat down by Taylor, Eddie Gilbert, and Rick Steiner. Chris Adams made the save, so it looks like we may have a new team. Missy Hyatt is back in the UWF. They gave her a Piper's Pit format show, but they have her as a heel bitch type, in quotes from Dave.
Classy, Dave.
UWF had a big card on May 27th, headlined by Ric Flair versus Jimmy Garvin, but it only drew $23,000. Dave wasn't impressed until he realized there was 8 inches of rain and a tornado that night. The Tulsa show the next night had even more issues. Weather kept Luger, Flair, Taylor, and Gilbert from making it. They offered a $3 discount for seats the next Tulsa show as a make good. All right, Sky, here's some world-class news for you. Mm-hmm. They drew a $9,000 gate with 1,100 fans on May 25th, their best number in a few months. Kevin Von Erich said he couldn't believe Brian Adias would try to kill him in the ring. And Dave can't believe how low WCCW will go. Also, Dingo Warrior is back and getting a push because they're hurting so bad. And, of course, he'd be gone soon. Ultimate Warrior shows up like toward the back end of 87, right?
Yeah, late summer. Yeah, early fall. Yeah.
So they're about to lose him as well. Pretty interesting little note here. Mike Rotunda and his wife had a baby boy. This makes Blackjack Mulligan the grandfather. So I don't know. We'd have to look. I don't know if this is Bray Wyatt or Bo Dallas, or I don't know if he's got another kid in there. But let's look up. If you want to look up their birthday.
Older one, right? Wasn't Bo Dallas?
I think Bo Dallas is older, so it might be him.
You're reading someone else's summary of the.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if Dave used to write like referring to himself as Dave, or if you're.
Oh no, yeah.
These are like, Dave says, Dave thought.
Bo.
Like Jimmy with the shoes.
Bray was born on. Was this May 23rd? You said.
I don't know. It's 87. So
Okay.
which one is
Well,
87?
He was born May 23rd.
87,
87.
right?
Yeah.
All right,
Bray Wyatt.
so it's him. Yeah, so it's him.
Bo
Rest
was
in peace.
born. Bo was born. Hold on.
A couple years before, probably.
Bo was born. No, Bo's younger actually. Bo was
Oh.
born May 25th, 1990.
Okay. All right, so this is
So-
there you go. Bray Wyatt.
Bray Wyatt.
Bray Wyatt was born.
Late
Yep,
Bray
that's
Wyatt, sadly.
Crazy.
Happening in Florida, bounty for Sir Oliver Humperdinck on Ed Gantner. A Rotunda Dory Funk match for the Florida title is pretty good, and rookie Johnny Ace is getting a push. Kevin Sullivan's promos have gone really weird. He started calling Dory Funk Terry, and we asked him about his match with Gantner in Lakeland, started talking about fighting Bad News Allen at Daytona Beach. Only that match happened in February. Jerry Jarrett's CWA is working with the AWA. He did an interview with AWA TV, and Jeff Jarrett was named AWA Rookie of the Year. Dave says Jeff may be the lightest wrestler anyone is attempting to push on a national level. Meanwhile, Tommy Rich was doing an autograph signing for some girls, and one of them attacked him. It was Jerry Lawler in drag. Not much news in AWA land. We get to look forward to Medusa Maselli challenging Sherry Martel for the women's title. He's got some notes about some stuff in Japan. Owen Hart had a really good match in Stampede against the Angel of Death. And yeah, that's about it pretty much. So any final thoughts on Dave's notes before we move along?
They're fascinating. Like, it's incredible to look back at, a time like this and when so much is changing in the business still.
Yep.
And to kind of look over the shoulder of what people are thinking in the moments.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool.
You know what's sad is if in 2023 somebody or 2024 somebody typed heel bitch on Twitter, Dave would probably fucking chastise him. Meanwhile,
I don't know. I think he's more likely to say it again, honestly.
Maybe.
All right. Well, the one thing we can say is wrestling and drugs and firings will always be with us. Always part of the business. It always is the number one song this week in the nation. Atlantic Star leads off the charts here as we head to our vintage pop culture corner, Scott.
Thank you, JR. Yes, one of my favorite songs of that era. Always by Atlantic Star, probably one of the best ballads of the late 80s. At number one, it was first week at number one. It was number 2 last week. Rest of the top 10, pretty solid. You had You Keep Me Hanging On, the Procol Harum remake by Kim Wilde at number 2. Head to Toe by Lisa and Cult Jam at 3. In Too Deep by Genesis. Yeah, In Too Deep by Genesis at 4. I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston at 5 from that amazing second album. Maybe it was her debut. Oh, it might have been her debut album, actually. The Lady in Red by Krista Berg at number 6 from the movie The Lady in Red. Or was it The Woman in Red? The Berg. Wanted Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi at 7. We all know how awesome that song is from the amazing Slippery When Wet album. Diamonds by Herb Alpert at number 8. JR and I have some fondness for other Herb Alpert hits. With or Without You by U2 at number 9. Of course, Joshua Tree, one of the greatest albums of all time. And number 10, Just to See Her by Smokey Robinson. So,
good variety.
Solid. Yeah, and a pretty solid late 80s. When the 80s were still the 80s, and it because I feel like by 88 into 90 we get a lot more pop, a lot more slow R&B, and then we get into obviously the grunge in 91. All right, let's go from the radio to the big screen and see what the top 10 movies are. Sorry. For the weekend of June 12th, 1987, here is your top 10. There are quite a good number of legitimate hits in this top 10.
Summer movies, summer blockbusters.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. At number 10, $1 Million Mystery. At number 9, Platoon, one of Oliver Stone's best. Number 8, Secret of My Success, little Michael J. Fox action. Number 7, Ernest Goes to Camp.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize there were Ernest movies that early. I thought they weren't until the 90s. Wow, I don't remember that.
Well, that's the first one, right?
I think so, yeah. Number 6, Harry and the Hendersons, which I think would end up being a TV show, I think. Number 5, The Believers. At number 4, great movie, The Untouchables. Oscar-winning performance by Sean Connery. These top 3 are pretty great. Number 3, Beverly Hills Cop 2. With
really great
gorgeous
Dr.
heel.
Scott 4 coming soon.
Yep. Gorgeous heel Brigitte Nielsen. And of course, they're all coming on 4K soon. Yeah. And then a pair of debut movies this weekend. At number 2, The Witches of Eastwick. Jack Nicholson, Cher, Michelle Pfeiffer. I think Susan Sarandon. I think. And the number 1 movie of the weekend, Predator. No surprise.
Arnold. Yeah,
Arnold. Arnold. I mean, could you have asked for a better trio than Arnold, Apollo Creed, and The Body? I ain't got time to bleed.
Pretty good. He's got no time to bleed. Yeah.
He's got no time to bleed. You've seen it, right, JR? You've obviously seen Predator.
Yeah, I mean, not anytime recently, but yes.
Got to rewatch it. I just watched it in the last few months. Fantastic movie. Sequels, okay, with Danny Glover, but the first one is pretty great. So there you go. There are your top 10 movies this weekend, June 12th, 1987, with Predator at the top of the list. And I'm sure Jesse probably rubbed it into Gorilla for a decent hunk of the rest of the year when he came back. So, because obviously he was not on camera for most of 87. So, what did he do? Superstars or was he Challenge? What did Jesse do?
Superstars.
Okay, so who replaced him? Was it Jimmy?
I think Bobby might have did it.
Yeah, it might have been Bobby. Yeah.
And Bruno was still there too, right? At this time.
Yeah.
Or it might have been Jimmy V, even Jimmy V.
Johnny V.
Johnny V.
It might have been Johnny V because Jesse definitely left.
Yeah.
Very shortly after WrestleMania 3, and I think was gone till like the end of July, beginning of August.
Well, Bobby does like the Saturday's Main Event stuff that he's not
Right.
there for, I think. So
right.
I don't know if it was him or.
So all right. All we have left is a little baseball. Obviously, no NFL. We're in June. But we do have some MLB games for this date, Saturday, June 13th, 1987. Blue Jays beat the Orioles 8-2. White Sox over the Twins 6-2. Reds beat the Braves in Cincinnati 5-2. Tigers beat the Red Sox 6-4. The Angels beat the Royals 4-0. Dodgers over the Astros 7-1. Expos beat the Phillies 7-5. Yankees over the Brewers 4-1. Rick Rhoden with the win. Dave Righetti the save. Pirates beat the Mets probably in the bottom of the ninth because Randy Myers took a loss. Wow, they were the defending world champions. So yes, people cared. 4-3 the final. Indians over the Mariners 6-1. Padres beat the Giants at the Stick 11-2. Cardinals over the Cubs 9-2. And the A's beat the Rangers 10-8. So the standings, Blue Jays leading the East by 3 games over the Yankees, 7 over the Brewers, and 7.5 over the Tigers. In the West, the Twins had a 1-game lead over the A's, 1.5 over the Royals. In the East, it was the Cardinals with a 5-game lead over the Cubs, 5.5 over the Expos, and 7.5 over the Mets. And in the West, the Reds had a 1-game lead on the Giants, 2.5 on the Astros.
It's always weird hearing like the old alignment of the divisions. Like, why the fuck were the Reds in the West and the Cardinals in the East? Like, none of it makes any sense.
Nah.
Bad day for the Twins here, but I like their chances going forward. You know, I think they're putting something together. I feel like calls too. You know, like call 2 goes their way, you never know. They could luck into their first champion.
Well, that division's very mediocre. So you know, let me tell you something. Tigers are in 4th place. You know, they may pull a big trade off. You never know.
Yeah.
You know?
I like the Twins. Keep an eye on the Twins as the summer moves on.
Yeah.
Never know.
So there we go. That is your pop culture corner.
All right. With all that said, let's head over to Buffalo and we'll talk about some wrestling history there. So let's pull up some notes, courtesy our good friend, Mr. Steve Riddle, of course. He was with us a few episodes ago and handles all of our historical facts. Steve, I know you got some stuff too, so we can pepper it in as we go.
Yeah.
Of course, we are talking about the Superstars that aired on June 13th, 1987, was taped on June 2nd. Buffalo, regular stop for the NWA, as part of the upstate territory, which ran from 1932 to 1970. After the territory closed, the city would become a regular house show stop for the WWF, while also being a stop for Canadian syndicated TV show Superstars of Wrestling. Buffalo's hosted 5 pay-per-views. Do you guys want to take a shot at them? Most of them are modern, obviously.
There's more than that, but
I
guess
WWE pay-per-views.
1 DCW. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fully Loaded was first.
Fully Loaded 99.
Then November to Remember, but that was ECW separate.
Yeah, we'll count that. That's one.
Then Fall Brawl 2000.
Yep, Fall Brawl 2000. Yep.
Great American Bash 2005.
Yep.
Armageddon 2008.
Yep.
A Night of Champions 2011.
Yep.
And Battleground 2013.
Look at you. This guy knows his history.
As he kept looking down. No, I'm just
We
kidding.
got them all. We're over and down right here.
Oh, okay, all right. Let's see.
He knows his history. He's big on 2011 and 2013 pay-per-views.
That's
So
right.
That's my favorite shit.
That's right.
Yeah.
The first show ever at the Odd, which was our hockey arena, was in 1939. February of 1939.
Hackenschmidt?
They drew 4,896 to watch Jack League over Bob Wagner.
Yeah.
Big night at the Odd.
Just want to, on a side note, guys.
Sean Kidd might remember that match.
This just popped up on my screen. Joel Embiid scored 70 tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Against the Spurs.
That's a decent night.
Well, it was the
70
anniversary of Kobe's 81 as well.
Yeah.
Tonight?
That's right, it was. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
70 points and 18 rebounds tonight. Wow. And they only won by 10.
I did Cronoso. I did the last show. I did the Hershey Center. And that's
where Wilt scored 100.
100. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Scored 100. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I went to Hershey this summer. And at Hershey Park, you can see the building where Brett and Bulldog fought at In Your House 5. And Marcus Fuller, I showed him. I said, "Is this?" I was taking some pictures.
The Giant
Center.
Center.
The one right there.
Yeah, the Giant Center. Yep.
Well, no, there's the Giant Center, but then there's the Hershey Park
Arena.
That match.
That's what I talked about. So that was still there. It was still at
that building where In Your House 5 is still there.
Oh, it's still
I don't know if it's
the Hershey Park Arena
today. It's the second oldest operating hockey arena in North America.
Yeah, the Hershey Bears, I think, are the oldest team in the AHL too. So
and they played.
The Giant Center is across the street from Hershey Park. Then the Hershey Park amusement park has that building in the. Marcus said they mainly use it for like training and like housing for like the employees of the, not housing, but just like whatever, like training and break areas and all that for the.
Everything is there. Park. The stadium, Hershey Stadium, is there. If you listen to the first 10 minutes of the last Cronoso, I kind of talk about all of what we're talking about right now, the arenas, and I worked there. I worked at hockey school there, and I met a guy there who had been there for 50 years, and he showed me around, like, this is where the wrestlers went in. This is where I saw Andre the Giant playing cards one night. You know, this is where we would build the ring and all that stuff. It's pretty cool. And
so that was also the building where Triple H almost needed a tetanus shot after rolling around in the fucking slop, right? Wasn't that match? Yeah. The Hogton match. Yeah. I wonder if that's the mix of chocolate and fucking cow slop. What a mix.
All right, well, we'll leave Hershey behind and head back to Buffalo.
Yeah. Props to Embiid, though. Nice night.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big night. There was also a big ECW taping in '97 there, Steve. That's where Justin Credible's push was really kicking off. They did the angle where he injured Mikey Whipwreck in his hometown. And there's some other good stuff there too.
Yep, I was there.
Oh, you were at that one? Yeah, that was a good. There was some other. I'd have to look back, but for ECW fans who do a podcast here as well, in the North South Connection, Extreme Three-Way Dance, it's every other Thursday. We're at 99 now, but the Burt Flickinger Center was home to many big ECW moments.
In the early 90s, we hosted something called the World University Games here, and they built the Burt Flickinger Center as a facility for that, and it was a perfect ECW venue.
Yeah, it looked great.
Perfect size. It looked great on TV. There was balconies, places for people to jump off of. Yep. I went to pretty much every show they had there. It was such a fun night.
The matches from the flick that aired on TV were Sandman versus Sabu. This is from December of 97. Sandman and Sabu, Mikey Whipwreck, Justin Credible, Paul Diamond versus Al Snow, Chris Chetty versus Pitbull 2, Axl Rotten and Balls Mahoney versus Lou Marconi and Wild Bill Wiles, and then Tommy Dreamer versus Taz also took place there. That was just the first show. I think they go back there. Here's another one from 98. Oh, so the one in 98 is a really good one. Were you at this one, Steve? April 98 was Bam Bam Bigelow versus Rob Van Dam for the TV title. I'm pretty sure that's the change and that's a really good match. I went 3 3/4 on that.
Is that the one where they that's not the one where he falls, where they go through the thing, right?
No, that's Taz. This starts RVD's the epic
RVD.
TV
I'm sorry. I thought you said Taz. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, and then also on that show was a Whipwreck Credible rematch. I went 3 1/4. So that's a really good show in April of '98 from the flick.
You mentioned Whipwreck being from Buffalo. A few other wrestlers from Buffalo. Ilio DiPaolo is sort of the legend, and he's got there's a restaurant called Ilio DiPaolo's near the Bills Stadium. And WCW actually did Ilio DiPaolo memorial shows in the 90s. And the second one they did is a huge draw. They got 16,000, raised 160K, and the Giant beat Sting in the main event. Mark Merrow, Monkey Whipwreck, Lex Luger, Adrian Adonis, and Ted Arcidi, also Buffalo-born wrestlers. Luger's in town now, lives here again, and he's in the wheelchair, so he's got the van,
right?
And you see him all around town all the time. You see his van, like he's just part of the community now. So
that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I met him a few years ago at Comic-Con, and it's super nice guy to talk to.
Definitely not the guy he was in the 90s, right?
No. All right, Buffalo also obviously numerous Raw, SmackDown, ECWs. The reason for the title change here, which we're going to talk about, Ricky Steamboat requested 6 weeks off to be with his wife, preparing to give birth to their son. McMahon would agree to the request, although part of that was that Steamboat had to drop the title. I don't know. You guys believe in the legend that Butch Reed was the choice, but he no-showed and they went with Honky? I don't. Yeah. You believe it?
Usually the thing against it is always in the locker room celebration. Honky has said to other people, they recorded that the next day in Rochester.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that it was supposed to be Butch Reed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Rude.
It's crazy like that.
Yeah.
How close that Honky reign was to not happening.
And I guess they were before the show. Hulk and Vince were talking. Oh, Reed's not here. Who should we give it to? And Honky walked by at the right time or whatever. Hulk had him in mind. What about him?
That's crazy.
Yep. On our mailbag episode of Through the Looking Glass on the network, Dave Hall and I, we did a mailbag episode in December, and one of our questions was, what would have happened if Butch Reed had showed up and beaten Steamboat? We seriously doubt he would have had I don't think he probably
it would have been quick.
One.
Yeah, he would have been a transition.
He wasn't going to be.
Well, he would have lost it back to Savage, right? Because the plan was Savage was going to win the title from Honky, and Honky, didn't want to give it up. So I think Savage just beats Butch Reed probably, and that's it. You know?
Yeah, maybe on the
crazy
big show they had in '87 or whatever.
You wonder how that would affect like Warriors' big win. Like, there's a lot of little weird what ifs.
We talked about that. Yeah, Dave and I talked about that. The whole ripple effect, everything would have changed. Would DiBiase had won the belt at WrestleMania 4 if they decided to keep the belt on Savage? Right. So,
with this win, of course, Honky Tonk Man would hold the IC title for 454 days, setting the record for the longest reign. Would hold for 35 years until being broken, of course, current day right now, by Gunther, who now holds the record of 600 days and counting. So, Honky's settled for second all time. That's still pretty good. The longest.
No one cares about the belt anymore. It doesn't matter about Gunther or whoever he is.
He's the closest maybe since in a long time where he's at now with the belt. So you don't care. That's the difference.
I definitely don't.
You don't care. All right. So we're going to go ahead and watch this match. Honky Tonk Man versus Ricky Steamboat. It's on YouTube. I think it might be, I don't know. There's some Superstars episodes on Peacock. I don't know if 87 is not on there.
Right?
Yeah. It's probably on if you watch the prime times on Peacock, I'm sure they showed this on the prime time.
I think it's on one of the best of Coliseum home videos that might be on Peacock.
Yeah, that's probably too. All right, but if you search it on YouTube, there's one out there, Honky Tonk Man versus Ricky Steamboat. It's about 8 minutes long. So we're going to watch this, and we'll do a bonus snake pit at the end here. All right, so you guys all queued up?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's hit play in 3, 2, 1, go. So was this announced the week before on Superstars TV? Like that there was going to be an IC title match?
I knew Steamboat would have a title match there.
Right.
So if you could see in the beginning of the video, the wide shot of the arena, it's a packed house. The arena seats were lower gold, then the reds, then the blues and oranges. And I was an oranges guy. This was a Christmas present, and I was in the lower golds. But on the opposite, I was behind the camera.
Right.
The camera was like down in front of us. So
but on TV was this announced the week before? Like,
I don't think.
I don't remember.
I don't know. I don't know for sure. I know that
it must have been. I can't imagine they would run out an IC title match with no hype.
I'm gonna check he was WWE. On the promos for this show that air the in-set promos on TV. It just said Steamboat will be defending the Intercontinental title
next week or whatever.
Well, I knew. And so at this moment, I'm the biggest Steamboat fan there. And I turned to my dad as Honky Tonk. So first you hear Fink, he says this match is for the title. So I stand up. All right, here we go. Steamboat's match. I don't know who he's wrestling till now. Honky Tonk comes out, and I turn to my dad and I say, this guy sucks. Steamboat's got it. This guy sucks. He is not beating Steamboat. So that's.
I mean, I don't see why anyone would think he would. Like, I'm with you. Like, I mean, Steamboat just beat Macho Man Randy Savage at WrestleMania 3. There's no signs at all that he's going to lose the belt, especially to Honky, who, yeah, also going to win at WrestleMania 3, but is never presented as any kind of legitimate threat in any way.
Steamboat comes out to the Alan Parsons Project, too.
Yep.
Goosebumps every time.
Right, let's see if we can hear his commentary here, right? Because we were trying to figure out with Jesse gone. Or would he have been back by now?
He's there.
All right. It's his Predator. Yeah.
No, he's there. It's Vince.
I hear Vince.
And Bruno.
Vince, Jesse, and Bruno.
Okay. Well, he obviously was back because the movie was out now. So,
yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean, hot start by Steamboat. And these guys have to, we covered them, Scott, when we did the MSGs, 87 to 88. They had some really good house show stuff, too. Both Honky and Steamboat, and then Honky and Savage. Honky and Steamboat both were diminishing returns a little bit. Like the first Honky Steamboat MSG is good. They get a little shakier. Savage Steamboat, the first one's good. Gets a little shakier. I think as Honky gets to 88, some of that in-ring really turned more into like the gimmick. And just, I don't know, he lost a little bit of the juice he had in 87, I think, in-ring. As he leaned more into the kind of chicken shit character into 88.
Right, he did. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
But yeah, this was a treat for me to be there for this. My first show, first taping. And again, I'm super confident right now. Super confident. Steamboat's winning. Am getting a little nervous with Jimmy Hart, though.
That's true.
Starting to make me a little nervous, because Steamboat's out there alone.
Well, it's been really like such a fluid, man. I mean, it's Steamboat, right? So it's like, but the good thing with the TV pace versus like a house show pace or whatever at this time, they're not fucking around. I mean, they're like cruising through this, right? It's like they're right into it. Steamboat unloads Flurry, then right into Honky now taking over, and there's no real downtime. It's just go because they want to squeeze it in, 8 minutes or whatever on TV or 6 minutes, whatever it is. Did it? I mean, obviously I wasn't watching live at the time, but for guys like you that were fans, did matches like this in any way diminish the, like we just saw Steamboat Savage and, what you both consider to be a top match of all time. Right. The biggest, right.
The number one match.
Right. That's your number one match, right? You're on your list. So the greatest match of all time on the biggest WrestleMania, in your mind, the greatest WrestleMania of all time.
Yep.
Ricky Steamboat goes to war and beats Savage. And then loses the belt in 6 minutes to the Honky Tonk Man on TV. Like, did that diminish like that run or that belt, or was it just like a fluke thing?
I never looked at it that way. I wasn't sophisticated enough, probably. Like how
I
long
thought
it took,
I thought
whatever. And to me, it was just he cheated.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be 20 minutes in to get cheated. You can get cheated anytime.
Yeah. He
cheated. He grabbed the rope and cheated. And that doesn't make me look back and think that the Savage match was any less good. I mean, obviously his run sucks. It sucks. His run sucks. He does the one Saturday Night Main Event against Hercules.
And even that, does he not really win clean? Like
it sucks. And it wasn't even Steamboat. It was his wife really pulling the strings here that wanted him off the road, who ends up divorcing him and taking all his money a couple years later anyway.
You wonder what he would have been like if he would have stayed. I mean, obviously you would lose. Would you lose Steamboat Flair? Like if he just stays IC champ for a while, is he happier and stays,
Probably.
Dave Hall and I talked about that too on a past episode of Through the Looking Glass. Like in another universe, if Steamboat doesn't leave, and I forgot who we thought he'd lose to, but we had him holding it.
He probably loses
to
Savage,
like Survivor Series.
Right.
Yeah.
There it is.
The reason he left is because.
And it's a lousy roll up too.
They hated him.
It looks like total crap. It really did.
Oh my God. So
yeah, I mean that's a shock ending right there. Like, so you get the great stooging by Jimmy. You think that's it? We're going into the finish with Steamboat.
And by the way, as you guys can see, as I described, that was right in front of me.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm looking right at it, and
I'm surprised they didn't do it at a house show.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
will say that.
I think TV is becoming a bigger thing to them in '87, right? Like we talked
Yeah.
about this in the past. Scott, when you
Bulldogs
look at
drop it on TV too. Dropped it on TV.
yeah, when you
know?
look at the TV post Mania, they really up the production and up the importance. A lot of stuff happens in late '86 and '87. I feel like they really start to pick up
Strike Force
what they're doing on TV.
on
Yep,
Superstars. Yep. But I was stunned for about a minute, and then I cried. And I cried for an hour, half an hour, however long it could have been. And finally, my dad's like, we got to do something different. And we went for a walk. And he bought me nachos and a Hulk Rules foam finger, which I had for like 30 years. Like, wasn't until like a move or two ago that I threw it out because it was nasty.
My only thing at the end, now that I'm looking at it, I feel like the roll up was kind of weak. Maybe if he hit.
I think Jimmy should have hit him with the megaphone, or Honky should have hit him with the megaphone.
So too. I agree. Now that I think about it, I think he should have hit him with the megaphone.
Although
I mean, he does hook the rope.
Such a cheap win. It was so cheap. Everything about it was cheap and shitty, right? Shitty roll up, shitty grab. He's just got himself tangled in the ropes practically. Like he fell into it. Just everything about it is cheap and shitty.
Yeah, it does make it luck, pure luck.
Yep. And the whole night, by the way. So what this was like is if your girlfriend dumps you, and then for the next 5 hours, you have to watch her and her boyfriend come in and out of the room
right,
for various sexual encounters the rest of the night. Like, because he had a title defense later, that he had a moment where they just brought him out just to announce that he won it. This allegedly was recorded in Rochester the next day, by the way.
Well, it's crazy seeing Savage like hug him and like embrace them so thoroughly, knowing where they're headed in the weeks from this, all right, well that was a fun watch for sure. Let's go to the next clip here, and then we'll kind of wrap things with some talk. But
real quickly, in between the clips, in the process of the taping, Mr. T appears out of the clear blue sky. Like a match is going to start, and Fink announces Mr. T, and I am still to this day and was that a huge A-Team fan. So I had temporary relief and enjoyment.
And that angle goes nowhere.
It goes nowhere. But on that one night, I needed
for that moment.
I needed something that night.
Yeah.
And the gods gave me Mr. T. And he then did commentary for a match.
Right.
And I was staring at him the whole time.
And that thing's done within weeks, right? Pretty much like he does it
goes nowhere. It doesn't. It's a bust.
All right. So the next clip we're going to find, if you search, it's actually the same channel, Lou Gregory on YouTube. Hulk Hogan and Killer Khan on the Snake Pit. So this is from the same taping. Is it the same Superstars episode?
Okay. So this actually wasn't on Superstars at my house. So they filmed this, and the match only went to a few markets,
right?
And it only aired in the markets where the match was going to be. So, like, I never seen this on TV until I was much older, because it was specifically recorded for certain markets. So,
where Hogan Khan,
I think New Jersey is one of them, where they wrestle at the Brendan Byrne Arena. I'm sure if Dave was here, Hollywood Dave, he's my backup for shit like this. Somehow he knows where all these matches were. But yeah, so in Buffalo it didn't air here. So but it's approximately in real time an hour and a half after the Steamboat match.
Okay.
And everyone knows Hulk is there, and everyone is waiting for Hulk. And they've announced he'll be in the main event.
Right.
So after they taped all the episodes, they did a dark match, which was a tag match with Hulk. But this is in between there. And you want to count it down?
Yeah, it's kind of so. It's if you just search Hogan and Killer Khan on the Snake Pit, WWF 87. If you want to watch with us, again, it's only like 3 minutes. So if you want to jump in, all right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, play.
In fact, the tag match. Well, just to say, the tag match you were talking about, Steve, is Hogan and Coco.
Yep.
Who was subbing for Jake against Kamala and Honky.
Yeah, well, Jake was still kind of messed up from the guitar shot, right, from Honky.
Right.
Yeah,
yep.
So that was the surgery Dave mentioned he was going on, and that really, again, that's another what if. Like, what if Jake didn't get hurt by Honky and that guitar? What does his life look like? Right? Does he still,
crackhead? What you're saying?
right? Well, he still probably has that addictive personality, so maybe he finds it somewhere else. But this definitely didn't help. Didn't help the cause. Him having this really
putting a lot on Honky and taking it off of Jake though too. You know what I mean?
Right?
I think
Yeah.
Puts a lot of that on him,
Right.
which isn't fair.
I'm sure he finds another trigger point somewhere.
Finally, Hulk is here. And I'm happy. Hulk is appeared. This is sort of down at the other end of the arena a little bit from me where they had it set up. But you could see the big light. You could see it very clearly. They did a good job of lighting it for us. And he's being Hulk, and this is awesome. And I got my new foam finger. I'm waving it around. I'm happy.
He's back from the dead.
I'm happy. For a minute, I was thinking about Steamboat, and I'm happy.
And Hogan looks awesome here. I mean, he's lean.
Yeah. Oh, he's Hulk, right? He's
jacked
I'm
up.
like, who the hell is this guy?
Jake get his pure Don Johnson. Had Killer Khan been on, or is this like his intro?
I didn't know him at the time. Doesn't mean he wasn't on. I didn't know who he was.
I knew who Killer Khan was. I like how Jake had to grab Damien because he was sliding off the platform thing. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. And now look what happens. I want everyone in the Place to Be Nation watching this. Just imagine you're a 7-year-old boy. And this is how your night is going. You finally get to go to the matches with your dad. See your heroes. Your two favorite guys are Steamboat and Hogan. Steamboat has lost his belt. And now look what happens to Hulk.
God, Khan has like such a terrible body too.
He really does.
No.
I'm not a big body guy, but like, there you go, the mist.
Oh,
and then he's out of there. Through the cave.
You gotta be kidding me. My dad.
I mean, this felt like a money moment right here. I mean, and they had to kill time for Hogan, right? So Andre's back. Right. He's having the surgery. So they had to fill this gap somehow. Khan, to me too, like I didn't know much about him because when I started watching again, he was a distant memory. But when my brother gave me all those old magazines, that's where I learned of Killer Khan. Was reading in that 87 time frame where they were teasing him coming, and then he just vanishes.
Look at how devastating they make this look too. I mean, Jake, who's not necessarily a Hogan guy in my mind,
right?
Puts his jacket off. He's trying to wipe off his. I'm telling my dad, Hogan's blind, Dad. Hogan just lost his sight. He's not going to be.
He had a lot of shit in his mouth too. My God,
that was a big blast.
Wow.
Look at the way they.
So now, where are any of their matches?
Gorilla shows up.
Yeah, Gorilla's out there. Are any of their matches anywhere?
Yes, they're out there.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Did they do one at Boston Garden? Maybe that's taped. Again, this is a Dave moment. We need Dave for things like this. You know how Frank the Tank from Barstool has that guy that follows him around now? I need Dave to take that job. Just follow me around, and if I need a Hulk fact, he just gives it to me real quick. But yeah, so then I cried again for an hour. And then pretty much until Hulk came out and I knew he could see again for his match. And the night ends with Hulk posing and me like trying to enjoy like I'm done by that point.
You're out.
I actually saw Killer Khan about a month and a half before. I was at another challenge taping in New Haven. It was the 24th of April. And I was with my brother, and Killer Khan and Fuji were on that snake pit too. There were a couple of snake pits. Who was on those snake pits? George Steele. Tito, Danny Davis, and Coco were guests of the snake pit. That was in May.
I mean, snake pit has a longer run than you think. Like it's a decent little run.
I think people who weren't in this era need to remember too. They built Andre and Hulk in a show like that, right? At Piper's Pit.
Yeah. Totally. Big deal.
They used those mattered.
They matter for a while because even really you have stuff that happens in the funeral parlor in like 1991, 92. The barbershop.
Yeah, that's 91.
Heartbreak Hotel in 94 stuff happens on there too. So they keep a King's Court. They keep them going.
That stuff is important. So,
Brother Love. I mean, a shitload of stuff happens on the Brother Love show. That's a catalyst.
To see Hulk go down like that was rough. Yeah. Rough stuff. But he did come back that night, and I left with a smile on my face. But man, what a rough night, man.
The first Killer Khan Hogan match that year was July 10th in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
I don't see him again. I don't see Killer Khan and Hogan again for most of the. He was laying down, or he was
I know there
beating
was a
Outback
couple.
Jack a lot. So
I know there was a couple, but
yeah.
All right. Well, again, if you're watching and you
listen to the next
you're at
24 inch
one, let us know.
podcast. I'll ask Dave this question on the next.
There you go. You're gonna do a 24-inch on the Killer Con feud. It'd be 5 minutes, but
Yeah.
me can tag it on.
July 31st, they wrestled in Landover. Here we go. Summertime. They actually wrestled the Meadowlands on August 1st.
Yeah,
They did
we'll see
wrestle a little bit in the summertime before Hogan came. Before Andre.
All right, Steve. Who's our MVP of what we watched?
Oh, it's got to be Honky, right?
You gotta go
Unfortunately,
Honky, right? Yeah.
I
What's
mean,
your
he starts off the run of runs.
Yep.
What's your match grade on that?
Well, I
Done.
mean, look, these are hard to grade.
Yeah.
You know, it's not meant to be. It's there to tell the story of Honky is your new champion. And I mean, they do 5-star home run on that. It's not a 5-star match, but they did what they kind of. So I don't know, 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5 feels right.
Yeah.
Kind of split
Yeah,
them
2.5. Yeah, I agree.
All right.
That's good.
All right, that'll do it for us here for tonight. Scott will be back in 2 weeks. On to a new town. We'll fire up the car and head off. And it's a town we've name dropped a few times here tonight. So be sure to check out 2 weeks from today, and we'll be visiting there. Steve, thanks for joining us as always.
Yeah, thanks. Love being on. Get me back on the rotation.
Of course, you got to pick a new town. We'll get you back in. Of course, check out the Sportscasters podcast. There you go. Check out the Sportscasters podcast and the Bob Costas interview. Check out everything here, North South Connection, as well, both on our video channel. We have a lot of good content.
One thing, North South thing I want to plug. Dave and I did in the Royal Rumble countdown, number 6, Hulk Hogan. Went up yesterday, I think.
And Scott and Toolman did Triple H at number 5.
Right? That's
and
5,
me and Keithy did Ric Flair. So we're all popped in with one of those.
Check those out.
I made a spirited argument that Flair should have been number 1 in ours, just based on 92 alone. I don't care about anything else. It's the greatest Rumble, and he wins the world title, and it's the greatest performance. That should outweigh all volume to me.
I said the only people I would accept as one are Hogan, Flair, and Austin.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't think Austin's dropped yet. So we'll see as of this recording. Anyway, they'll all be dropped, I think, by the time this hits. And then also check out, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, our North South Connection, in the Shorts category, or on Facebook Reels or Instagram or TikTok, Ryan Gray and I are counting down every WrestleMania match ever. 402 to 1. 402 to 1.
You guys are sadists.
Every time I open up social media, your 2 ugly faces. Hey, Ryan. Hey,
you guys are absolute sadists.
But they're all a minute or less. They're all a minute or less, so they're quick. We're doing all 402. All 402.
And the way you stagger them ensures that every time I open Instagram, the first video is going to be you two.
That's the goal. Check them out and share it. And if you want to catch up, if you're new to, you didn't know about it, on the YouTube Shorts, if you go to there's a playlist of them. You can watch them all in order.
Only 300 more to go.
You can watch them that way. We're cruising.
Our
goal is to have number 1 drop on WrestleMania Saturday this year.
I've never wanted WrestleMania to come quicker in my life.
All right, we're going to wrap up. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Take care. Check out everything across all of our feeds. We'll be back.
Peace.